In the early morning, when the forest was still quiet and the mist rested low on the ground, a Cherokee warrior moved carefully between the trees. He had been tracking signs near the edge of the territory, footprints that did not belong to his people. His steps were slow and controlled, his senses sharp. This land was protected by old rules, and strangers were not welcome. Every sound mattered, every broken branch carried meaning. He expected danger, not a moment that would test his heart as he followed the trail. He heard a soft sound that did not fit with fear or threat. It was gentle and steady, like quiet breathing. He stopped and listened again. Then he heard it clearly, the sound of a baby feeding. Confused, he moved closer, keeping his body low and silent. Behind a cluster of trees, near a small stream, he saw something he never expected to see. A white woman sat on a worn blanket, her back against a fallen log. Her clothes were torn and dusty, her face pale from hunger and worry. In her arms she held a small child and nursed the baby with care and focus. The child's skin tone showed a mix of two worlds. The baby was calm, safe in her arms, unaware of the danger around them. For a moment, the warrior forgot to breathe. The warrior had been raised to believe strict traditions. Outsiders were threats. Children born between worlds carried heavy meaning. He had heard elders speak with hard voices about such things. Yet what he saw did not match the stories. The woman did not look dangerous. She looked tired, frightened, determined to protect the child at all costs. He stepped forward, and a twig snapped under his foot. The woman looked up sharply. Her eyes widened with fear when she saw him standing there, tall and strong, dressed in traditional clothing, a weapon in his hand. She pulled the baby closer, turning her body as if to shield the child from harm. Her hands trembled, but she did not run. She stayed still, knowing escape was impossible. The warrior raised his hand slightly, not as a threat, but as a signal to stop. His face remained serious, but his eyes studied her carefully. He saw dried tears on her cheeks. He saw how thin she was. He saw the way the baby latched calmly, trusting her completely. This was not a scene of crime. It was a scene of survival. He asked her, in a firm but controlled voice, why she was here. His words were simple, but his tone carried authority. The woman struggled to speak at first. Her voice shook as she explained that she had nowhere else to go. She spoke of loss, of being chased away, of choosing the forest over certain death. She did not beg. She only told the truth as she knew it. The warrior listened. This was not what tradition had prepared him for. He had expected lies or defiance. Instead, he heard honesty mixed with fear. The child stirred slightly, then settled again, warm and safe. The warrior felt a strange heaviness in his chest. He had been trained to follow rules without question, but no rule had prepared him for this moment. He thought of his people, of the elders, of the punishment that could follow if he made the wrong choice. Tradition demanded one path. His heart whispered another. He looked at the woman again, then at the child. The baby was innocent, born into a world already divided. The woman was doing the only thing she could to keep the child alive. After a long silence, the warrior lowered his weapon. The movement was slow, deliberate, and full of meaning. The woman noticed and let out a small breath she did not realize she had been holding. The warrior did not smile, but something softened in his expression. He told her to stay where she was for now. His voice was calm but serious. This was not mercy yet, only a pause. Still, that pause mattered. It was the first crack in a wall built by generations. As he turned slightly toward the forest, he knew this discovery would change everything. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Tradition had been challenged. The story was only beginning. By the time the sun climbed higher, the forest no longer felt calm. The Cherokee warrior stood a short distance away from the woman and the child, giving them space, but never turning his back. His mind was heavy with questions. What he had seen could not be unseen. Tradition demanded action, yet his instincts urged caution. He had told the woman to stay. Now he had to decide what came next. The woman slowly finished nursing the child and adjusted her torn shawl. She did not try to move away. She knew the warrior could stop her easily. Instead, she waited, her eyes watching his every movement. The baby slept peacefully, unaware that its fate rested in the hands of a stranger bound by ancient rules. The quiet between them felt tense, stretched thin by fear and uncertainty. The warrior finally spoke again. He asked her name, where she came from, and how long she had been hiding in the forest. His voice remained firm, but there was no cruelty in it. The woman answered carefully. She told him she had been traveling with a small group when sickness and hunger took them one by one. She spoke of being blamed, pushed away, and left with nothing but her child. When she reached the forest, she thought it was the end. Yet the forest had kept her alive as she spoke. The warrior noticed the details he had missed before. Her feet were swollen and bruised. Her hands were rough, marked by hard work and struggle. She was not pretending. Every word carried the weight of truth. He had seen fear before, but this was something deeper. It was the fear of a mother who had already lost everything, except her child. The warrior looked toward the direction of the village. If he took her there openly, the reaction would be harsh. The elders would demand answers. Some would demand punishment. The presence of the child alone could cause anger and division. Yet leaving her in the forest was no longer an option. He knew she would not survive much longer without help. He made a choice that surprised even himself. He told her to follow him, but not to the village. Instead, he would take her to an old shelter near the river, a place rarely used, known only to a few hunters. It was safer there, hidden from curious eyes. The woman hesitated, then nodded. She had no better option. The journey was slow. The woman struggled to walk while carrying the child, and the warrior noticed her weakness. Without speaking much, he adjusted his pace. When she stumbled, he steadied her without touching her directly, respecting distance but offering support. The forest seemed to watch them, a silent witness to a bond forming under pressure. When they reached the shelter, the warrior showed her where to rest and where clean water could be found. He left some dried food behind, food meant for his own journey. The woman's eyes filled with tears, but she did not speak. Gratitude sat heavy in her chest. She had expected anger or violence. Instead, she was given shelter. Before leaving, the warrior warned her. He told her to stay hidden and remain quiet. He said he would return. His words were not a promise, but they carried responsibility. As he walked away, his steps felt heavier than before. He was not just a warrior now. He was a man carrying a secret. Back in the village, the warrior could not rest. Every sound reminded him of the child's quiet breathing. Every elder's voice reminded him of the rules he had bent. He knew someone would notice his unease. Secrets rarely stayed hidden for long. As night approached, he understood the truth clearly. Helping the woman was only the beginning. The real test would come when others learned of her existence. Tradition had been delayed, not defeated. And when it returned, it would demand a price. Night settled heavily over the village. The Cherokee warrior lay awake long after the fires burned low. His body was tired, but his mind refused to rest. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw the woman's frightened face and the child sleeping peacefully in her arms. He had faced enemies before without fear, yet this quiet choice weighed more than any battle. He knew that what he was doing could not stay hidden forever. The next morning, the warrior returned to his duties, trying to appear normal. He joined the other men as they prepared for the day's work. He listened when elders spoke and nodded when spoken to, but his attention drifted often toward the forest. He worried about the woman's condition. He worried about the child. Most of all, he worried about what would happen if someone followed him or sensed that something was wrong. Before midday, a young hunter approached him with questions about unusual tracks near the river. The warrior felt his chest tighten, but he kept his voice steady. He explained that animals often moved strangely near the water and suggested the hunter focus elsewhere. The hunter accepted the answer, but suspicion lingered in his eyes. The warrior knew then that time was running out. As the sun lowered, the warrior found a reason to leave the village again. He said he needed to check traps and gather supplies. No one argued. Warriors often moved alone. He traveled quickly through the trees, his steps sure and silent. When he reached the hidden shelter, he stopped for a moment and listened. The forest was quiet but not empty. The woman looked up when she heard him approach. Fear crossed her face at first, then relief. She was sitting near the shelter, rocking the child gently. The baby stirred and let out a soft sound before settling again. The warrior noticed the woman looked weaker than before. Her movements were slow, and her skin looked pale under the forest light. He brought more food and a small container of water. He told her she needed to eat and regain strength. The woman thanked him quietly. She then asked a question she had been holding back. She asked why he was helping her. The warrior did not answer right away. He looked at the child, then at the ground beneath his feet. He finally said that not all rules explained what was right. He said that sometimes the heart saw what tradition could not. His words were simple, but they carried truth. The woman listened closely. She did not interrupt. She only nodded, understanding that his choice carried great risk. The woman then shared more of her story. She spoke about the child's father, a man who had promised protection but never returned. She spoke of being blamed for things she could not control. She said she did not want to cause trouble. She only wanted the child to live. Her voice broke when she spoke those words. The warrior felt a quiet anger rise inside him, not at her, but at a world that left the weak to suffer. He warned her again that others might discover her soon. He said the elders would not be patient. The woman asked what would happen to the child. The warrior did not lie. He said the child's future was uncertain. That uncertainty sat between them like a shadow. As he prepared to leave, the warrior noticed movement near the trees. His hand went to his weapon, and his body tensed. A figure stepped back into the shadows, unseen but real. Someone had been close. Someone had been watching. The warrior knew then that secrecy was breaking. He told the woman to be ready to move if needed. He did not explain more. There was no time. As he returned toward the village, his thoughts raced. If the elders learned the truth, they would force a decision not just on him, but on the woman and the child as well. That night, the forest no longer felt like protection. It felt like a narrow space between mercy and judgment. And the warrior understood that the next choice he made would define not only his honor, but the fate of an innocent life. The next day brought tension that could be felt even before words were spoken. The Cherokee warrior noticed the change as soon as he stepped into the center of the village. Conversations stopped when he passed. Eyes followed him longer than usual. The forest had not kept its secret as well as he hoped. Something was shifting, and he knew it. An elder called for a gathering before the sun reached its highest point. This was not common without a clear reason. The warrior stood among the others, calm on the outside, alert on the inside. He listened as the elders spoke about signs in the forest, about tracks near the river, about whispers of a stranger hiding within their land. No names were spoken, but the meaning was clear. The elder asked if anyone had seen or heard anything unusual. Silence followed. The warrior felt every breath he took. He could step forward and speak the truth now, or wait and risk being exposed later. Tradition valued honesty, but it also demanded strict judgment. He chose to wait, hoping for time. After the gathering, 2 warriors approached him privately. They asked where he had gone the past few days. Their tone was casual, but their eyes searched his face. He answered carefully, speaking of patrols and hunting. His words were true enough to stand, but incomplete. They nodded and walked away, yet doubt followed them. As evening approached, the warrior made his decision. Waiting was no longer safe. He returned to the forest, moving faster than before. When he reached the shelter, he found the woman awake, her face tense. She told him she had heard voices earlier, distant but real. The forest had been disturbed. Fear returned to her eyes. The warrior told her they could not stay there anymore. He explained that the elders were close to discovering everything. The woman asked where they could go. The warrior hesitated. There were few places left. Then he spoke of an older healer who lived beyond the main paths. Someone respected but rarely questioned. It was a risk, but also a chance. The woman gathered what little she had. The child remained calm, sensing movement but not danger. They traveled carefully, avoiding open ground. The warrior stayed alert, listening for footsteps behind them. Every broken branch made his heart race. They reached the healer's dwelling as night settled. The healer was old, with eyes that had seen many seasons. She listened without interrupting as the warrior explained. When he finished, she looked at the woman and the child for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. She said the child carried no guilt. She said life did not choose where it was born. Her words gave comfort, but not safety. She warned that the elders would not be easily swayed. Tradition was strong, and fear often spoke louder than wisdom. Still, she agreed to help, if only to give the child a chance. Back in the village, the absence was noticed. The shelter was found empty. The elders grew angry. They called the warrior forward again, this time with sharper voices. They demanded answers. The warrior felt the weight of every rule pressing down on him. This time he spoke. He told them about the woman, about the child, about what he saw and why he chose not to act with violence. Gasps followed. Some shouted. Others sat in silence. The elders argued among themselves. Some called his actions betrayal. Others questioned if the old ways always served justice. The warrior stood firm. He did not raise his voice. He did not beg. He spoke of responsibility. He spoke of innocence. He spoke of honor not as blind obedience, but as protection of life. The meeting ended without a decision. That uncertainty was dangerous. As the warrior left, he knew one truth clearly. The story had reached a turning point. What came next would either break him or change everything his people believed about tradition and mercy. The days that followed were filled with uneasy silence. The village moved as it always had, people working, children playing, elders watching, yet something invisible sat between them all. The Cherokee warrior felt it with every step he took. His words had been spoken, and they could not be taken back. Now he waited for judgment, knowing it would not be gentle. Whispers followed him wherever he went. Some villagers avoided his eyes. Others watched him with open curiosity. A few looked at him with quiet respect, though they said nothing aloud. Tradition had taught them to obey, not to question, and his choice had shaken that balance. He did not regret what he had done, but the weight of it pressed on him constantly. Meanwhile, the woman and the child stayed hidden with the healer. The healer cared for them with patience and calm. She gave the woman herbs to strengthen her body and taught her how to keep the child quiet during the night. The woman slowly regained her strength, though fear never fully left her. Each sound outside made her tense. Each passing moment filled her with worry about what the elders might decide. The warrior visited when he could, careful not to draw attention. Each time he saw the child growing stronger, his resolve deepened. The baby smiled more now, unaware of the danger surrounding its small life. That innocence reminded him why he had chosen this path in the first place. One evening, an elder known for his strict beliefs came to the warrior's dwelling. The visit was unexpected. The elder did not sit. He spoke sharply, asking why the warrior believed his feelings mattered more than the laws of their people. The warrior listened without interrupting. When the elder finished, he answered simply. He said the laws were meant to protect life, not destroy it. The elder warned him that compassion could weaken a tribe. The warrior replied that cruelty could destroy it faster. Their conversation ended without agreement, but something had shifted. The elder left, troubled, his certainty no longer unbroken. Soon after, a council was called. This time, more voices were invited. Hunters, healers, and respected elders gathered. The warrior was asked to speak again. He did not repeat everything. Instead, he spoke of balance. He spoke of how the land taught them to adapt, how storms changed rivers, yet life continued. He asked if tradition could grow without losing its roots. The healer was invited to speak as well. Her voice was quiet but steady. She spoke of the child's health, of the woman's care, of the simple truth that the child posed no threat. Some elders listened closely. Others looked away. The council argued until night fell. No final decision was reached. But for the first time, punishment was not demanded immediately. Delay itself was a sign of change. Later that night, the warrior returned to the healer's dwelling. He told the woman about the council. Hope flickered in her eyes, small but real. She asked what would happen if the decision went against them. The warrior did not hide the truth. He said he would stand with them, no matter the cost. The woman looked at him with disbelief. She asked why he would risk everything for someone he barely knew. The warrior looked at the child, then back at her. He said some moments define a person's life. Walking away from this one would haunt him forever. As dawn approached, the warrior stood outside, watching the sky change colors. He knew the coming days would decide more than one fate. They would decide whether tradition could learn mercy or whether fear would rule once again. Whatever the outcome, the path forward was set. There was no turning back now. The next morning arrived with a sense of waiting that felt heavier than before. The Cherokee warrior woke early, aware that the council's delay could not last much longer. Decisions among the elders were rarely postponed without reason. When they waited, it meant they were measuring consequences carefully. That knowledge gave him both hope and fear. In the healer's dwelling, the woman sensed the same tension. She watched the child sleep and wondered what kind of world awaited such an innocent life. The healer moved quietly, preparing herbs and food, acting calm, yet her eyes showed concern. She knew how quickly fear could turn into harsh judgment when tradition felt threatened. By midday, a messenger arrived at the warrior's home. The council demanded his presence again before sunset. This time, the message was direct and serious. There would be no more delays. The warrior thanked the messenger and prepared himself. He knew this meeting would decide everything. Before leaving, he went to see the woman and the child. He spoke gently, telling her the council would decide that night. She listened, without interrupting, holding the child close. When he finished, she asked one quiet question. If the decision was cruel, would there be time to escape? The warrior paused before answering. He said he did not know, but he promised he would not abandon them. As the sun began to set, the council gathered once more. The fire burned brighter than before, lighting every face clearly. The elders sat in a wide circle. Some looked firm, others uncertain. The healer was present again, along with several respected hunters. The warrior stood in the center, calm but prepared for the worst. One elder spoke first, saying that allowing exceptions could weaken their laws. Another elder replied that refusing mercy could poison their future. Voices rose, then quieted. The discussion moved back and forth, heavy with emotion and fear of change. Then something unexpected happened. A young hunter stepped forward. He spoke of his own mixed blood, of a grandmother from another people who had saved his family long ago. His voice shook, but he continued. He said that without compassion his life would not exist. The circle fell silent. The elder who had once confronted the warrior spoke again, this time slower. He admitted that tradition had protected them, but also admitted that it had sometimes caused pain. He asked whether strength truly meant refusing to bend. The question lingered in the air. After a long silence, the oldest elder stood. His voice was weak but clear. He said tradition was not meant to erase life, but to guide it. He said the child was innocent, and that the woman had shown courage by protecting her child at all costs. He said breaking tradition was dangerous, but so was refusing to see truth when it stood before them. The decision was not perfect. The council ruled that the woman and child would be allowed to stay under protection but away from the center of the village. The warrior would be held responsible for their safety and behavior. Any harm caused would fall on him as well. It was not full acceptance, but it was life. The warrior felt relief wash over him, mixed with responsibility. He accepted the terms without hesitation. He bowed his head, honoring the council, even those who still disagreed. When he brought the news to the woman, tears filled her eyes. She did not speak at first. She simply held the child and cried softly. The healer nodded, satisfied that mercy had found a narrow path forward. That night the forest felt different. Not safe, not dangerous, but changed. The warrior understood that tradition had not been destroyed. It had been tested, stretched, and reshaped. And the story was not yet over. The hardest part would be living with the choice they had made. Life after the council's decision did not return to normal. The woman and the child were brought to a small dwelling at the edge of the land, far enough to keep distance, close enough to watch. Some villagers accepted the ruling quietly. Others did not hide their displeasure. The Cherokee warrior felt their eyes on him each day, measuring his actions, waiting for a mistake. He took his responsibility seriously. He visited often, bringing food, checking on the child's health, and making sure no one caused harm. The woman worked hard to stay unnoticed. She helped the healer, gathered herbs, and kept to herself. She spoke little, but her gratitude showed in her actions. The child continued to grow stronger, laughing softly at times, a sound that carried hope and discomfort at once. Not everyone was pleased. A small group of warriors believed tradition had been weakened. They spoke quietly among themselves, sharing anger and fear. To them, the council's choice felt like surrender. They believed rules existed for a reason, and bending them invited chaos. The warrior sensed their resentment, but chose not to confront it. He believed calm was stronger than force. One afternoon, while the woman was collecting water, a harsh voice stopped her. A man stood blocking her path, his expression cold. He questioned her presence and warned her not to forget where she stood. The woman lowered her eyes and said nothing. The warrior arrived moments later. He placed himself between them without raising his voice or weapon. His calm authority ended the encounter, but the message was clear. Danger still existed. That evening, the woman confessed her fear. She worried that one day anger would turn into action. She asked if the child would ever be accepted. The warrior did not offer false comfort. He said acceptance takes time and sometimes generations. But he also said change had already begun. The council's decision proved that. Days passed and slowly, small shifts appeared. A child from the village waved at the woman once, curious rather than afraid. An elder left extra food nearby without comment. These gestures were small, but meaningful. The warrior noticed them and held on to them as signs of progress. Then news arrived from outside the land. Traders spoke of rising conflict and movement among other groups. Uncertainty spread again. Fear has a way of reviving old divisions. Some elders worried that keeping the woman and child might invite trouble. The warrior knew that once fear returned, compassion could fade. When a council meeting was called again, the tension returned. Some elders questioned whether protection could continue if danger increased. The warrior spoke calmly, reminding them that abandoning innocence out of fear would undo everything they had stood for. He said strength was proven not in comfort but in difficult times. That night the warrior visited the woman and the child one more time. He looked at the child, now alert and curious, touching the warrior's hand without fear. That small touch settled something deep within him. He realized that whatever came next, his choice had already shaped his life. As the moon rose, the warrior stood alone at the edge of the forest. He understood that breaking tradition once was easier than living with the consequences every day. Yet he did not regret it. Tradition had not been lost. It had been challenged by truth, and truth had held its ground. The final test still waited ahead. Acceptance was fragile, and peace was never permanent. But the path forward had been opened. One decision had changed many hearts, even if slowly. And in that slow change, the warrior saw the future forming. One quiet step at a time. The final test came sooner than anyone expected. Early one morning, a small group of outsiders was spotted near the edge of the land. They were not enemies, but strangers brought uncertainty. Fear moved quickly through the village, reminding everyone how fragile peace could be. Old instincts returned, and some voices again questioned the decision to protect the woman and the child. The council gathered once more, but this time there was no shouting. There was only heavy silence. The elders understood that the choice they made now would define the future more than any rule written before. The Cherokee warrior stood ready, prepared to accept whatever came. He had already given everything he could. The woman heard the news and felt her strength leave her for a moment. She held the child close, whispering comfort even as her own heart raced. She had lived with fear for so long that she recognized its return instantly. She knew she could run again, disappear into the forest. But she also knew that running would undo the trust that had slowly formed. When the council spoke, The oldest elder addressed everyone, not just the warrior. He reminded them of the past months, of how the land had remained calm, how no harm had come from mercy. He spoke of how the child had grown healthy, how the woman had shown respect and gratitude. He asked a simple question: had compassion weakened them, or had it strengthened them? One by one, others spoke. Some admitted their fear had been greater than the danger itself. Others said they had watched and seen no threat, only life continuing. Even those who once opposed the decision remained silent, their certainty no longer firm. At last, the council reached its final word. The woman and the child would no longer live on the edge. They would be allowed closer, under the same protection as others. Not everyone agreed, but the decision stood. Tradition was not erased. It was expanded. When the warrior delivered the news, the woman could not speak at first. Tears filled her eyes as she looked at the child, then back at him. This time, they were tears of relief, not fear. She thanked him, not with words alone, but with a quiet understanding that would last a lifetime. Life slowly found a new rhythm. The child grew, learning to walk, then to run. Some children played nearby, curious and unafraid. The woman worked openly now, no longer hiding her face. There were still looks of doubt, still moments of discomfort, but they no longer ruled the days. The warrior returned to his place among his people, changed but steady. He had not lost honor. He had redefined it. Others began to see him not as a rule breaker, but as someone who carried the weight of choice with courage. Years later, the story would be told differently. It would not begin with fear, but with a moment in the forest, when a warrior chose to see humanity before tradition. Elders would speak of it as a turning point, not a mistake. Children would hear it as a lesson, not a warning. The Cherokee warrior never claimed credit. He knew the truth. It was not one man who broke tradition. It was compassion that reshaped it. And in doing so, it proved that the strongest traditions are those that protect life. Even when the choice is difficult, the forest still stood where it always had, silent and watching. But the land remembered. It always does.